Okay, everybody, it is coming up on 2 o'clock. It is Friday, November 15th. Dr. Patrick Scott here. So today I want to talk about this whole idea. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I teach lots of different things. I teach psychic development. I teach intuitive awareness. I teach doctors, therapists of all kinds. And I want to talk about this idea of we are our own worst enemy, that we are in the way of us achieving everything we want. I don't think that's a big stretch. I really don't think that it's a big stretch for people to understand that we have a lot of limiting beliefs and limiting decisions and programming and baggage and things like that that get in the way of us actualizing everything that we want. And so today I want to talk about a class, that I teach. And for those of you that are going to be taking the class in San Diego next weekend, be a week from tomorrow, I want to give you a little bit of a curriculum. And then for those of you that are on the fence about attending, we're pretty full. I'm going to just say that I think we have a couple seats, just like 2 seats left. And so there's still time if you would like to register for that class. It's called STFU, Manifesting Brilliance by Getting Out of Your Own Way. It's in San Diego, California, November 23rd and 24th. And I don't know if I can put the link in this description below. I'm just going to ask you, because I think it's too late for that. So maybe my team can do that, but you can go to the website, www.drpatrickscott, all one word, lowercase, and check it out and click on the register link. It started in 2020 on the dawn of COVID, and I was asked, in my history, I started my academic life as a music teacher, and then about a decade after my public school experience, I started getting into social work and psychology and things like that. And I started noticing things. And I've been a Buddhist since I was 15 or 16 or so. And I wanted to feel things. I wanted to know things. I wanted to, I don't know, I had great admiration for people who were intuitive. And I followed people like Sylvia Browne and other noted, Edgar Cayce and other noted psychics, and just Abraham Hicks. And, I belong. And I also followed Tony Robbins as he got his start. And I also followed many psychological theorists like Aaron Beck and William Glasser and Brian Weiss and all that stuff. And that history is for another day. But I noticed as I did my own work and cleared more of my baggage, that I started to become shockingly intuitive. Like I would know things I couldn't know. Now, I was in the closet for many years about that. I wouldn't say anything, but I would, in my head, predict things and they would happen. I would know things and they were true. I would see or sense things and they would work out. My first conscious experience of that is I worked as a social worker in the emergency department in a hospital in LA County for 10 years. I did a lot of roles, but I started there. I did my training there. I did my LCSW internship there. So the 3 years of collecting hours, and it was a level 1 trauma center in LA County, and a level 2 trauma center in LA County. And I won't tell you the name; it doesn't matter. And I've told you this before, and it is a full moon tonight. And we here at the clinic have been rocking and rolling. In fact, we called so many ambulances the other day before yesterday. The paramedics actually, were like, "Oh, Dr. Scott, we're back again. Oh, Dr. Scott, we're back again. Oh, Dr. Scott, we're back again." And so, getting on a first name basis with the paramedics and the police, because we hospitalized so many people, which as an outpatient mental health center, we do on occasion, but we usually don't do 5 or 6 in one day. And I've told the story. I'll to say it again. I was working with some of the nurses in the ER, and they were showing me the schedule, the nursing schedule. And I'm talking 200 nurses. This is a big department. And they, I noticed that they would do like a 3-month schedule. And if you're from that hospital and you're watching this, I'm going to make mistakes. And so don't like get all upset. It was 30 years ago, so give me a break if maybe I get the numbers wrong. But I noticed that on the schedule, which was this big spreadsheety looking thing, and then on this one weekend, the staffing went way up. And then it was like up for 3 or 4 days, and then it went back to normal levels. And I just pointed at it and I said, "What's up with that?" And this old seasoned nurse, uh, named Mary, said, "Well, honey, that's a full moon." And she said it like, "You idiot, it's a full moon." And I said, "What do you mean it's a full moon? What does that have to do with anything?" And she goes, "Oh, you don't know?" I was new, I was young, I was green. We have to staff up on the full moon because there are more and she said this, and I'll never forget it. I was 29 years old, and she said, "More crazies, more violence, more shootings, more car accidents, more drunks. Everything that we see in the ER, you can count on 40% more." And she quantified it that on a full moon weekend, there's going to be 40% more of whatever we see than on a non-full moon weekend. And sure enough, I think I probably was on call that weekend, being the new kid on the block. And I was in that hospital the whole weekend with gunshot wounds and shootings and gangs and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. So not surprisingly, this week here at Heads Up, and for those of you that don't know, I run a clinic here in Nevada, in Las Vegas, and it's a low-income mental health clinic, but it's outpatient. It's not a hospital. We're not a psychiatric facility. We are an outpatient, community-based mental health counseling center. And I mean, this week, one after another, and people are suicidal. That's our thing. That's what happens when we have crisis. We rarely get the super duper crazy shopping cart people, shaking their hand at God or psychotic, but we get a lot of people, particularly teenagers, that are really having a hard time. And if you notice and pay attention to your own vibration, you may notice that during the full moon. Now, understand I'm also a scientist, and I'm not wed to you got to believe this or not, but I would ask you to just check in with yourself and notice times of the year. Notice, intuitively that maybe, and if you're having a hard day and you get home and you're kind of reflecting and going, God, what made that day so hard? You may find that there are some cycles and rhythms that you're noticing that will coincide with either the full moon or Mercury in retrograde or astrological configurations or seasons or Thanksgiving's coming up or the anniversary of a death. It happened to me several years ago. My older brother, as you know, is a psychologist. And this was a while ago. Our mother died in 1984, May 17th, 1984. And I bet this was 10 or 15 years ago, even before I was doing all this woo-woo stuff. And my brother and I were talking on the phone. He goes, "You okay? You seem a little down. Is there everything all right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm fine. Why do you ask?" He goes, "Well, you seem some kind of down. I just wonder, you're usually pretty chipper and you just don't seem like yourself." I said, and his name's Mike. I said, Mike, I'm not feeling myself, and I'm feeling really, really sad, and I have no reason to. There was no particular stressor, no particular trigger. I am feeling, and he laughed. And I said, "Why are you laughing?" My older brother loves to laugh at me. He goes, "Have you looked at the calendar?" I said, "No." And he said, "Our mother and our sister died today, 20 years apart." Oh, my mom died in 1984, May 17th. My sister died 2004, May 17th. And so that was 20 years ago since my sister died. That seems so weird. But he pointed out, now as a psychologist, he pointed out it was easy for him to see because he was having his own feelings about the anniversary of our and I'm so sorry, I'm bumping this microphone, scratching. He was having his own feelings about the anniversary of the death. Now, understand, not conscious, not aware. There was no clear trigger. And I think sometimes we have feelings, and I'm sorry, you don't get through this life without having feelings. And sometimes we're having feelings and they are unexplainable. There's no reason. I have clients that will wake up in the middle of the night with a panic attack. I mean, they're sound asleep and they wake up and they're having a panic attack, and they're just absolutely terrified. So no nightmare, nothing like that. This led me to this work in the emergency. It's really valuable training for me because it helped me understand the nature of the human. A lot of varieties. I learned a lot about the human condition. I certainly learned psychiatry around mental health, around everything. And I did learn that there were these cycles and rhythms in the universe, if you will, that changed humans' behavior. Um, you know, the reason why the moon, or why we use the word lunatic, if you heard that term lunatic, it's the root word is luna, for the moon, the lunar surface of the moon, lunar, luna, lunatic. It's because the full moon, they think, or we've documented, makes people crazy and so on. So then I'm going about my life as an ER social worker, and one day, you know, one shift I work the day shift, Monday through Friday, and then it went to one Monday through Thursday, then it was 3 days. They tried anything to keep me from burning out. So I started with 5 days, then I went to 4 days, then I went to 3 days, 12-hour shifts. And one day, one of the nurses came to me and said, "Dr. So and so would like you in the pediatric room. You know, can you help?" Now, I was an extra pair of hands. I mean, we had techs and we had nurses and nurses. We had all different kinds of people. And, sometimes it's really busy, and I would be an extra pair of hands to restrain someone or to help with anything at all. Now, although another story, I'm an honorary nurse. It's a joke, but no patients were harmed in my being a social worker and helping, but I would be an extra set of hands to do things, or I would get things. And it's just kind of, we were a team. And when it was really busy, we all had to it was all hands on deck. And if I had to transport, or if I had to call upstairs to get a bed or play charge nurse, and we did what we needed to do to get the job done. And so it was not unusual for me to be called into a particular room, usually for a psychiatric reason, meaning the patient is psychotic, or they wanted me there to talk to the patient, or there was a grief thing going on. Well, this particular day I walk in and he goes, and I said, "Hi, Dr. So-and-so." And he goes, "Oh, Patrick, great, you're here. Just stand there." Didn't give me any more extra. He goes, "Just stand there." And it was a little kid, 2 or 3 year old, that they had to do a lumbar puncture, a spinal tap. So it's called a lumbar puncture, and it's, not fun. The parents are usually traumatized because you have to kind of stick a needle into a kid's spine to remove cerebral spinal fluid to test it for infection or meningitis or whatever it was. And for those of you healthcare professionals, you know what I'm talking about. And it's not, it, I think the needle and the actual whole procedure of it is more traumatic than the procedure itself. I've had a spinal tap. Some of you out there have had it. It's not comfortable, but it's not the end of the world. And so I just stood there, and I can hear, as I'm walking to the pediatric room, the screaming of the kid. Kid is hysterical. And I walked in, and the kid is looking at me like somehow I'm there to rescue him, terrified. He's being held down by a bunch of medical professionals. There's this big needle. Now, they're doing their best not to show him the needle, but they have to put the kid on the side and put him in a position, and they have to kind of expose and um, I'm not a real doctor, I'm a witch doctor, but, real doctors out there, medical doctors will know that, it's delicate. You got to get the kid to stop squirming so that you can find the area to pull the fluid out. I mean, this is not rocket science. If the kid is moving a lot, the doctor can't actually get the needle into the right place. I think you get my picture. So I come in, I make eye contact with the kid, and the kid's looking at me like, "Dude, you got to be here to save me." He was a little boy. And all of a sudden, I just made eye contact with him, and I looked at him. I wasn't trying to do anything, and he just stopped. He stopped crying. And I noticed that. And I saw the staff, there were about 5 or 6 people, nurses, techs, doctor, one doctor, looking at each other like, "See?" So later that day, it was the end of the shift, and I went over to the doctor, who, it was quiet, it had quieted down, and I said, "What was that?" And he goes, "What was what?" Because, of course, he'd moved on. He'd seen another 50 patients by that point. I said, "That whole bringing me in and having me just stand there. I felt kind of useless. I thought you wanted me to hold the kid down or help, with something." He goes, "No, you don't know." And I said, I don't know what. And he said, none of us, now understand, this is a staff of, and I'm going to get this wrong, let's say 20 doctors, 25, 30 doctors. I don't remember of the team, that, and then, I mean, the whole department was hundreds of people. There were 16 full-time social workers, LCSWs. I mean, this is a big hospital. And when I say 16, I mean 16 full-time, 40-hour-a-week salaried LCSWs just covering the ER 24 hours a day, right? So I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "We can't figure it out, but you have a presence. There's something about you that when you just walk into a room, the energy changes in the room." Now, understand, these are not woo-woo people. These are not psychics. These are not intuitives. These are physicians and nurses, kind of scientifically based, concrete. Same thing about the full moon. We don't know why. We don't know how. All we know is we better staff up on the full moon because it's going to be rocking and rolling, because every full moon weekend for the last 100 years has been rocking and rolling in LA County. So we staff up because we know we need to. We don't know why you, meaning me, have this energy about you, but we know that if anyone needs to be calmed down, you just walk in the room and these kids calm down. And I didn't know. And I'm not saying this to impress you, and I'm certainly not saying this to brag. I was completely unaware of, and I'm not going to even get into the reasons why. This is a long-winded story of helping you understand that sometimes you just need to shut up. And I noticed that in Western culture, because I've been raised in it, we get brownie points for thinking. We get brownie points for doing. We get brownie points for checklists and to-do lists and spreadsheets and analysis. And if I need to know something, let me just read more about it. If let me just read about it. And in indigenous cultures, and I can speak Native American, not because I am, but because I'm aware of that culture, and I can speak Huna, or ancient Hawaiian culture, because I'm trained in it and been exposed to it quite a lot, that credit was given for those who trusted their gut way more than those who had book learning. And so when I go to Hawaii, and I'll tell you another kind of funny story about Hawaii and me, because I'm obviously very white, maybe whiter than my own teacher, who's white. And so I have a bit of a challenge sometimes convincing locals or Native Hawaiians that I have anything to do or say that might be valuable, because I'm not of their culture and I'm not Hawaiian, and I'm not even brown. We have another teacher in Hawaii. Some of you know him as Kumu Karen. Kumu meaning teacher, and she's Japanese, but was born and raised in Hawaii. And long story short, we had a local kind of grumpy that we were teaching Hawaiian teaching. That particularly me or my teacher, who's white, is teaching Hawaiian shamanistic studies, Hawaiiana as we call it. And he was complaining to Kumu Karen, and to which Karen said, "Well, Patrick's white, he's got a lot of education. Matt's white, and so and then she said, well, there are many Kumu on the islands who are not Hawaiian. There are very few native. There's certainly probably no 100%. And I could get this wrong, but there's very few. The percentage of actual people that have pure Hawaiian blood is very small. Just like any culture, you go to Brazil, there's multiple cultures, represented, very few purely one type of ethnicity, if you will. I think that's well documented. So she says, well, I'm not Hawaiian. I know I've lived here and was raised here and I teach here and I live in Hilo, but I'm not Hawaiian. I'm Japanese. I'm full-blooded, pretty much Japanese, and I'm not Hawaiian at all. And he looked at me, he goes, but at least you're browner than those guys. At least you have some brown, you look the part. They don't even look the part. So I battle that. And so this idea that we get in our own way, because there is a law of diminishing returns when it comes to overthinking, ruminating, talking too much, doing too much. And in indigenous cultures, the shaman, the kahuna, the priest, the medicine person, the pick your role of the spiritual leader, um, often look to non-linear sources for answers. They looked to, well, never mind, they used mind-altering substances like mushrooms and peyote and ayahuasca and ava and those kinds of things. So that goes on today, and you have people tell me that they've had those experiences, and it's very spiritual. And also, you have to understand that people in Western culture, it's almost like we've lost the ability to listen. We're so caught up with consuming information, consuming. Saw a thing this morning, and I do it too. I mean, I'm online all the time, and so please, I don't sit around and meditate all day. I got things to do, but I do infuse quiet time and meditation into my daily life, and that's, I guess, the point here. The STFU class is really about training yourself. It's a specific training to enhance your ability to shut the fuck up, which is hard. And I'm flip, and I'm irreverent, and I understand that it's not easy given how much information we're bombarded with. And so in ancient times, the person that trusted their gut and came from their gut or came from their heart was more valuable than the person with the book learning. So I was on a Hawaiian Airlines flight a number of years ago, and I had this beautiful lei. A lei is a necklace in Hawaiian culture. And the stewardess looked at me and looked at the necklace and looked at me and looked at the necklace. And finally she goes, "Brother, who you know?" in her pidgin dialect. And I laughed and I said, "Oh, I study with this kumu, and I know this person and the person that made this." And she was, because she was local and she was Hawaiian, and she saw the lei, and her question was, "How did you get it? Did you steal this?" Someone of your skin color should not have this kind of a necklace. And I said, "No, I've studied with this person and this person." And she said, but she knew exactly who I studied with. And so to the extent I have any street cred at all in Hawaii, is by virtue of who I have permission to teach from. My PhD doesn't matter. They don't care about that. My master's degree doesn't matter. My bachelor's degree doesn't matter. My 40 years of experience really doesn't matter to them. They want to know who I know. They want to know who knows me. They want to know who will vouch for me. And as I've come up in the Hawaiian culture, there have been obstacles. Like, why would somebody of this skill and color want to teach this stuff? Why would someone of this Western culture want to have halal? Halal means school. Like, why I have my own school. I've been given permission by the culture to have my own culture, my own school. I've also been given a Hawaiian name, which is quite an honor. For those of you that know about Hawaii, or you know about Hawaiian culture, that's quite a thing. It's quite a big deal. And so all of that I do now is with permission. And I look to my teachers and to my elders. And so, in ancient times, Hawaiian was not a written language at all. It was purely oral tradition. And so in many indigenous cultures, and I love watching, I'm kind of into Ancient Apocalypse and I just love indigenous cultures. I don't know why, probably because we've all come from them. And I love this oral tradition. And, there are certain places on the globe now where we are starting to understand more about the oral tradition of what was passed down. And I'm, of course, all into the, ancient aliens and, who built the pyramids and where does the lost continent of Atlantis go. And I come to it from a spirit of appreciative inquiry. And I'm really okay with the ambiguity and uncertainty. Like, I really am okay not knowing, but I love that stuff. If you've seen that stuff about looking at some of the statues in Egypt, ancient Egypt, which is a culture that I'm super attracted to, and I've been there, where they'll do some sort of I don't know what it is. They take a picture of the face of a pharaoh, let's say, and the symmetry is so perfect, like it's like right on to the micron or something, and that the eyes are completely symmetrical and the face is completely symmetrical, and that they say that there's no way with a stone and with a hammer and a chisel that there's no way. It's just not possible to be done. And they show now all over the world, Easter Island, and the Yucatan Peninsula with the Maya and the Aztecs, these brick structures, and each brick is 70 tons or something. And they're thinking, during the last ice age of however many thousand years ago, humankind did not have the technology to move things like this. And so I love all that stuff because I am curious about it, and I'm curious about the evolution of humanity. Now, if you look at the last 150 years or so in Western culture, it's changed a lot. And I often say that I wonder what my mom would be doing with the internet, with email and cell phones and all that kind of stuff. I think she'd be cool. I think she'd like it. But she died in 1984. She never had a cell phone. She never had the internet. She never had a computer. She had a phone and a TV and cigarettes, lots of cigarettes. And I remember with one of my friends who was in his 80s, a musician friend of mine, he got an iPad. And I'm not sure what prompted him to get an iPad, or he got it as a gift from maybe one of his family members. And we were visiting. My partner and I were visiting, and he goes, I got this thing. I don't know what to do with it. Can you help me? And so we booted it up. And in the place he lived, Riverside, California, there was this community-based Wi-Fi. And so I'm with this 85-year-old man who's sharp as a tack, and I'm showing him he doesn't even know how to turn the thing on. He has no idea. He has no reference point. And I turn it on. I connect to the community-based free Wi-Fi, and all of a sudden the internet starts coming up. And he's a musician. He actually, and I can tell you this, he's passed away years ago. He played in Las Vegas for Frank Sinatra and for all the greats, the Rat Pack and all that stuff. So back in the day, he retired in 1989 when the casinos and the showrooms kind of went away. They started moving to more recorded music rather than the live orchestras that used to play for people like Frank Sinatra. And I just loved talking to him. And he started asking me to look up certain artists, musicians. And I would look them up, and they would come up, like Wikipedia would come up, and they would have audio things. He was captivated. And he said, are you telling me that everything that's ever been written or recorded, all of history is in this little thing? And it was one of the small, it was an iPad mini, actually. It was like this big. And he's pulling up all these people I had never heard of, and we're playing music that he hadn't heard, and he was just captivated, absolutely captivated. So I know that we of our age, and I'm older than most of you, have been raised with, and your kids and grandkids have had something in their hand since they were 2 or 1, and kids are getting phones, and I'm totally okay with that. I think the technology it's kind of where we are right now. But imagine for this man who had just, he was leading. I mean, he was older and he didn't get out much, and this gave him the world, the whole world, at his fingertips until he died. And he died a number of years later, well into his 80s. He just loved it. He would sit for hours and just look up people he used to work with and in orchestras and people he used to, and so. Josh, yes. Josh says it's terrifying and it's such a culture shock. Thank you. And so back to why we're here. I get concerned at the levels of depression that I'm seeing, the levels of anxiety, the levels of social anxiety, the levels of addiction. And I do this for a living. I do this every day. I work with people here at the clinic right now. And I don't know, and I'm not going to go out on a limb here and say that I think technology is our worst enemy. I don't think it is. I love it. I love all my gadgets. I'm thinking of maybe it's time for a new laptop, and I'm asking friends and like, what is Apple Intelligence? Is that AI? And not wanting to be left behind. Now, I think there's a law of diminishing return. And there's lots of studies on dopamine and how, we start scrolling and you got to get that hit of dopamine and the number of followers and, all that kind of stuff. So I get that that's a real thing. I also get that and I was very resistant to it. So here I am doing this and really enjoying it. And I'm getting so much feedback from you all. It's so fun for me because what I have gotten is, how do we study with you? You're so busy, you're so expensive, you're not available, whatever it is, the reason why they can't get to me, can't go to your classes, can't study with you, can't work with you individually. How do we get to you? So for me as a teacher, it's wonderful to have a platform, actually a completely free platform, to be able to talk and kind of interact with you, and do it for free and do it weekly. And I like that. It's really fun, I think. And again, I use my teacher, Deepak Chopra, who looks great. And I haven't talked to him, but he looks so good. He's he's in his 70s, I think. And oh, he looks so healthy, so young, so slim. I'll say this, and Deepak will never see this, I don't think, but he always had a tummy. He and I shared our tummy, when I studied with him. Now, I studied with him back in the 90s, and I was much, much heavier. And those of you that follow me know that I've lost a lot of weight. And he would always have a tummy, but he was a jolly Indian guy, funny, just hilarious, and super smart, super, super smart, super. I could just listen to him talk all day long. And he's online and does just, if you want to look up Deepak Chopra, he's on all the time. And I can tell that he just loves the heck out of it, loves having a platform, loves talking to people. And it's easy, it's free, it's accessible. And I remember when I studied with him at the Chopra Center back in the day, and I don't know if he still does this, every Tuesday night, it was free lecture. So for 2 hours, every Tuesday night, and again, for those of you that are out there, I think it was Tuesday night. It might have been Wednesday night. I don't know. But there was one night of the week, a weekday, where he would just open up the auditorium at the Chopra Center, and anybody could come, and he would just talk for an hour about whatever was on his mind, and then he would answer questions about anything, and he would just hang out with people. And the few times I went, there were hundreds of people. I mean, like 200-300 people would just show up. Southern California, this was La Jolla, when the Chopra Center was in La Jolla, and then it moved to La Costa after that, where it is now. And he's doing the same kind of interaction. This is a New York Times best-selling author. If you don't know who Deepak Chopra is, Chopra, you've been under a rock. I mean, he's been around for 30, 40 years. He has written so many books, and so many really seminal books. He's got a new one out that I have, and I don't remember the name of it. I have it. You'd think I would remember the name. And so if he can do this, I can do this. And this is a way for us to connect and to talk. And so I'm doing my best, on the one hand, telling you all to shut up and get quiet, at least some period of the day. I'm also really ramping up my commitment to connecting with all of you on this platform, or any platform, really, Instagram or Facebook, or I'm a little leery of TikTok. But now that I'm hearing, this is so funny, because whenever you start doing something on a platform, there's 5 other platforms, and people say, well, no, you need to be on Discord, and you need to be on, I'm even forgetting some other ones. There's other ones. You need to be on TikTok, and you need to be on this one and that one. I'm doing my best to put out for you guys. And so I am getting a lot of feedback that you all appreciate it. We started this YouTube channel, and so, and we're linking it and all that kind of thing. I'm less concerned about followers. I have enough to do, but I always like the idea now that when I do travel the world, and I do, how can we reach you? How can we see you? How can we connect with you? This is how. And thank you, Joshua, totally following me on Discord. I don't even know what Discord is. And so I'll figure it out. I'll figure out what Discord is. Because I think there are apps now, or programs where you can do one thing and it gets disseminated to all the platforms. So I'm working on it, and I'm really doing my well. So let's get back to you shutting the fuck up. In 2020, at students' request, I have become extremely intuitive. And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying I've had several near-death experiences, and I can tell you stories about some of the stuff that I've perceived and seen. That's for another day. I think when you commit to a spiritual path and you commit to your own development, I think that all of you have developed and will develop more psychic abilities, more intuitive awareness, where you just know things. You don't know how you know them, you just know them. And whether you see, feel, hear, taste, smell, something comes through your senses and you go, this is not, this is an interesting kind of idea. Um, okay, to cut to a chase. Okay, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. And I don't want to get political, but um, in my family, we are divided. We have people on the right side and we have people on the left side. I will just put it that way. And when people try to guess, and I'm pretty apolitical, I really am. I've done so many elections and I'm older. And so but I have a point of view and it is different than other people in my family. I'll just say that. And I knew Trump was going to win. And I was arguing now, I'm a gay Buddhist social worker. Do the math as to what my political point of view might be. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I wasn't going to vote for Trump, and I didn't vote for Trump for a lot of reasons. And yet, what's funny about this is I kept saying for 4 to 6 weeks to 8 weeks before the election, I said, this is what it's going to be like. It's going to be near landslide. He's going to win every swing state. And I said it and it was recorded. And my family member kept saying, oh, no, you're just saying that to, make me feel better because you know that I want Trump to win. I said, well, okay, but I'm getting, and I nailed it really pretty specifically. Now, I don't say that because it's like, yippee, wow, I'm so psychic, but it wasn't the result I wanted, first of all. And I know that he is the president we have, and I will support him, and I admire him, and we're going to do what we do with this new president. And I predicted it, chapter and verse, and I didn't like it. I didn't like what I was seeing, but I kept saying. Now I said this to I didn't put it on in public, but I said it to my family member, who then reiterated it back to me last night. He goes, you called it. He said, I thought you were just saying that to make me feel better, but you called it, chapter and verse, every swing state, like it was a landslide. I mean, we can say what it was. It was pretty much a landslide. And I'm not saying this to incite a riot or anything. I'm using it to say that even when you will get feedback from your universe that something is so, whether you like it or not. And sometimes you will get intuitive hits on things about all sorts of things, and you don't like them. And so back in the day, probably 2020, a little bit before COVID, we do Huna March in September. I was at Huna in March, and I was just doing a lot of psychic readings and a lot of things for people at Huna, which is a class we teach in Hawaii for about 200 students from all over the world. And they made the request, could you please teach this? So I wrote a course called Psychic Development, not an interesting title, and we started it in June of 2020. And we had like 40 students, and the venue was very paranoid about the contact. We had to do 6 feet apart, and everybody had to wear masks. And it was the whole beginning of that period. We all went through it together. And so I've taught it a number of times now. And last year, somebody said, psychic development is kind of a boring title. Do you have something more interesting than psychic development? So I rewrote the course, and I call it STFU, Manifesting Brilliant Abundance by Getting Out of Your Own Way. Because I think that when you forge faith and when you forge a deep trust in yourself, you can manifest absolutely everything you want. And what I want to highlight, I remember teaching this class in Japan to the two Japanese, in Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, but I have another kumu who translated for me. And I remember she said, okay, well, where's the role of the conscious mind in intuitive awareness? I said, not that interesting, not that important. Well, where's the role of the unconscious mind? I said, look, we need to get the conscious mind out of the way, the chatter, right? The constant rumination, constant thinking and talking. We need to get the unconscious mind out of the way, which is the repository of your feelings, your history, everything that's ever happened to you. Get that out of the way. And then we need to get your higher self out of the way. She looked at me and she stopped the translation and she goes, wait a minute. No conscious mind, no unconscious mind, no higher self. What's left? And I said, exactly. What's left? What's left is your soul's connection to the all that is, your soul's connection to information that is non-local. It's not contained in your body. It's not contained in your head. It's not in your brain. It's not your consciousness. You are accessing information that lies outside of your conscious awareness. Now, lest you get bitchy with me and say, well, that's ridiculous, you've all done it. Every person I survey in every class all over the world for 40 years has had a hunch, has had a suspicion, has had a gut feeling. And I always ask, did you ever go against your gut feeling? And they go, uh-huh. And I went, how? And I always go, did that go well? And they go, oh no, whenever I've gone against my gut. So don't sit there and go, well, I'm not psychic at all. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. It's like the people, and I'm a hypnotherapist, say, oh, I can't go into trance. Have you ever driven home and not know how you got there? Oh yeah, every day. Okay, that's trance. Have you ever watched a movie and been engrossed in it? That's trance. Have you ever read a book and it was a page turner? And you know, so people are silly. And so I, as a scientist and a spiritualist and whatever it is I am, teacher, I really want to scientifically bridge this gap between science and spirituality and really advocate for all of you to just get out of your way. Shut up. Stop thinking. Stop talking. Stop analyzing. Stop striving. Now, hear me out. And I know you, and I know many of you have had successes that you didn't plan. You had outcomes greater than your SMART goals. You actually, in spite of yourself, achieved something and you didn't do shit. You didn't try. And that's what I'm talking about. That you can access wisdom and energy and power that is beyond your consciousness. If life were all about information, we'd all be thin. No one would smoke. No one would have an addiction. We'd all eat kale every day and do Pilates and blah, blah, blah. The fact of the matter is information is limited, and our acquisition of information, because trust me, I have 18 years of college. I'll say that again. I have 18 years of college. So if you think, I know this one, well, let me just learn more about it. Let me just read more about it. Let me just study more about it. Let me just think more about it. If that was the solution to our problems, we would have done so already. My favorite thing to say to new patients that come in the office, and I say this very frequently, they come in, they're struggling with anything at all, depression, anxiety, and addiction, whatever. And I say, this lies beyond your conscious awareness. We need to get into your unconscious mind, because if you could think your way out of this, you would have already. I'll say that again. Anything you are struggling with, if it was just about your thinking. Now, I know this flies in the face of cognitive behavioral therapy. I know it flies in the face of a lot of the stuff we're taught, but I will say that you're smart people. Anything you're struggling with, if it was just about your thinking and you just needed a pamphlet, I have some here. I have some heads up pamphlets I could show you. Let me just hand you a pamphlet. It's just a pamphlet. You would have thought about it differently. You would have changed something. But we as humans are creatures of habit, and we get into patterns of thinking and patterns of behavior. And so I challenge you, whether it's this class. Now, this class is available online. You can buy a recorded version of it online. And I don't know on the website where it is. It's drpatrickscott.com. It's not live events. It would be something else. Probably work with me or learn from me. And so I would love for you all to explore what it would be like to just do a foundational practice where a few minutes a day you just shut up. No phone. Now, I am not saying, hear me out. I live on the planet too. I have bills to pay. I have I got the same drill going on that you do. I am not saying go to the mountaintop and sit in the lotus position or wear a special outfit and renounce your worldly life. I'm saying 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, a half hour, get out in nature, shut up, stop talking, stop thinking, stop moving, stop analyzing, stop wondering. And there is a very definitive way to do that, and that's meditation. And so, sorry, it's been around, it's not going anywhere. Meditate, learn how to meditate. I've got a lot of recordings. There's a lot of apps out there that you can help get it, but it's important to. Now, what will happen as you begin to slow the volume of thinking and you start to open and cleave an opening, you'll start to get other information. I promise you. You'll start to get wisdom that defies earthbound stuff. You may connect into spirit guides. And so the class really is 2 days. It's teaching 4 aspects of intuitive awareness or psychic development. The first is release work, letting go of your baggage. Because if your head or your body is so cluttered with baggage, physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, you can't hear anything else. You can't sense anything else. So we do a lot of release work the first half of the first day. Second step is meditation. Get quiet, shut up, and get practiced at meditation, right? Third step, calibration, which is figure out a way to get yes and no answers from your universe. Now there's pendulum, there's applied kinesiology, there's a whole host of ways. You've done the muscle testing thing, you've had that, been exposed to that. However you do it is fine, but you can get a sense. And a lot of people I work with these days, when I say, do you have a calibration tool? I was with somebody this morning and she just went, no, I just know. I just get a hit, a yes or no. I just know. I don't need to test anything. I don't need to pendulum. I get a yes or no hit from my universe. Now, again, it's not 100% accurate. Nothing is. And then finally, the fourth step to psychic awareness or intuitive development is listening. Because if you've gotten your baggage out of the way and you're able to get quiet and you're able to calibrate to get yes or no answers, you have a greater capacity. And I'm not talking about listening to people talk. I'm talking about listening to what might come your way when you have a fork in the road, when you are challenged with an obstacle, when you're challenged with a thorny relationship, when you have a decision to make about your career, about a relationship, about money, about your physical health. I have a fundamental belief that everyone has their own answers. I'm not the answer guy. That everyone that I work with, everybody, all of you out there have an awareness of yourselves and you have your own answers. Sometimes you need validation or some sort of piggyback on it, but trust yourself and to learn to trust yourself and learn to trust your gut. It's happened this week where I had to hospitalize a bunch of people. The students today were saying, well, why did you hospitalize that one and not that one? Why did that one go to the hospital and that one didn't? And I just said, that was my gut. That one felt more dangerous than that one. Yeah, but they presented the same way. I was like, I know. And I can't tell you why. All I can tell you is that one needed to go to the hospital and that one didn't. I had objective criteria. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just shooting from the hip all day long. But they both had the same objective criteria, including psychological testing and interviews and all that stuff. And one of them just felt more dangerous to me to let go home than the other one. And that will build over time. So that's enough for today. We are having this class November 23rd and 24th, a couple seats left, San Diego, California. It's on the website, www.drpatrickscott.com. That's all lowercase, one word, Dr. Patrick Scott. And we haven't done the schedule for next year yet, so we'll do more of these and look forward to seeing you. So you guys have a great day, have a great weekend, and we will talk soon.